Under the relentless Atlanta sun, John Harris stood at the heart of his bustling construction site, sweat beading on his brow as he oversaw his crew with a quiet pride. The site hummed with purpose, hammers pounding, drills whirring, and workers moving in sync like gears in a well-tuned machine. John, a black man who had earned his place through grit and skill, had molded this team into something extraordinary. Every beam hoisted, every blueprint followed, was a testament to his leadership. He didn't just build structures, he built trust, ensuring every worker knew their role and felt valued in the grand design. Hey, John David Thompson, his site supervisor and longtime friend, jogged up, his grin cutting through the morning heat. The crew's moving like a Swiss watch today. You've got this place running smoother than ever. John wiped his forehead with a calloused hand and chuckled. That's the goal, Dave. Safety first, then speed, no cutting corners. David laughed, clapping John on the shoulder. You and your mottos. It's why this site's the best I've worked on. His smile faded slightly as he leaned in. Heard anything about the new regional manager, Kyle Evans? John shrugged, his eyes scanning the crew as they adjusted a massive steel beam. Just that he's coming tomorrow for a meeting. We'll see what he's made of. David's brow furrowed. Word is, he's a shake-up guy. Likes to throw his weight around. Could be trouble. John met his friend's gaze, unflinching. We've dealt with tough bosses before. Long as we do our work right, we're solid. David nodded, but unease lingered in his eyes. Yeah, you're right. Just hate the thought of someone messing with what we've built here. We'll handle it when it comes, John said, his voice steady. For now, we've got a deadline to crush. Later, as John reviewed blueprints by his truck, his phone buzzed. It was Denise, his wife. Her voice a cool breeze through the heat of the day. Hey, you holding up out there? It's scorching. Don't forget to hydrate. John smiled, stepping away from the site's clamor. I'm good, Denise. Just another day. How's Mikey? Drawing up a storm, asking when you'll be home, she said warmly. Don't let those deadlines run you ragged. Okay, we need you. I'll be home for dinner. Might be a bit late. John promised. Love you. Love you too, she replied. And John hung up, a wave of calm washing over him. His family was his North Star, the reason he poured his heart into every project, not just to shape the city's skyline, but to build a better future for them. As the afternoon wore on, John gathered his crew for a quick huddle. The workers, a diverse mix of veterans and new hires, looked to him with respect. He never barked orders or belittled anyone. To John, they were family, united by sweat and purpose. All right, let's wrap up strong, he said, his voice clear but kind. David, lock up the tools and secure the equipment. I'll handle the paperwork. David gave a thumbs up. On it, boss? John headed to his office trailer, the sun painting golden streaks across the site. Just as he settled at his desk, David knocked and poked his head in. Don't forget, tomorrow's the big meeting with Kyle Evans. Something tells me it's going to be a show. John leaned back, a wry smile tugging at his lips. Guess we'll find out what he's about. Whatever it is, we'll deal with it. David grinned. That's why you're the man. John, always cool under pressure. He left, and John dove back into his paperwork, unaware that the meeting with Kyle Evans would soon upend his world. The next morning, the conference room buzzed with the usual pre-meeting chatter. John sat at the long table, flipping through his notes, while department heads and project managers swapped talk of budgets and timelines. David, seated beside him, tapped his pen nervously. You ready for this? He whispered. John nodded. As I'll ever be. Let's see what Evans is bringing. The door swung open, and the room fell silent. Kyle Evans strode in, flanked by two executives. Tall, with slicked back gray hair and a sharp suit that screamed corporate. He carried an air of cold authority. His piercing gaze swept the room, sizing up each face like a predator assessing prey. Good morning, he said, his voice deep and unyielding. I'm Kyle Evans, your new regional manager. I'm here to ensure this region runs like a machine, efficient, profitable, and on target. John studied him, noting the hard set of his jaw and the way he stood, as if daring anyone to challenge him. Kyle glanced at the agenda, then fixed his eyes on the group. I've reviewed your reports. There's room for improvement. I'll be making changes to cut waste and boost output. John and David exchanged a glance. Changes? The word hung heavy, promising disruption. Kyle's gaze zeroed in on John. You're John Harris, right? Project manager for the West Midtown site. That's me, John replied evenly. We're on track to finish phase 2 by month's end. Kyle gave a curt nod. I hear you're a top performer, but I also hear you do things your way. I'll be watching your projects closely. Efficiency is non-negotiable, and I don't tolerate waste. John kept his face neutral, though his gut tightened. I focus on doing the job right, sir. Safety and quality come first. If that takes a little extra time, it's worth it. Kyle's eyes narrowed, a flicker of disdain crossing his face. Deadlines and costs matter. Excuses don't. We'll talk more when I visit your site. The room grew tense. Colleagues' eyes darting to John. He nodded calmly. Understood, Mr. Evans. We'll be ready. Kyle moved on, grilling other managers with surgical precision, dissecting their reports and pointing out flaws. By the meeting's end, one thing was clear: Kyle wasn't here to build relationships. He was here to reshape the region in his image, no matter who got bruised in the process. As John gathered his papers, a mix of frustration and wariness settled in. He'd dealt with hard-nosed bosses before, but Kyle's demeanor felt different, sharp, almost personal. David caught up with him in the hallway. What's your take? John shrugged. He's tough, no question. But we'll handle it. Just keep doing what we do. David frowned. You see how he looked at you like he's got you in his crosshairs? All that efficiency talk, he's not thinking about safety or quality, just the bottom line. I noticed, John said, his voice low. We'll show him you can have both. It's about balance. David sighed. Just don't want you caught in his sights, man. You've worked too hard for this. John clapped David's shoulder. We'll be fine. Let's get back to the site and focus. The drive back was quiet, John's mind replaying the meeting. His team trusted him, and he trusted them. But Kyle's scrutiny added a new weight, an unspoken challenge to everything John had built. At the site, he called a brief team meeting, keeping his tone steady. Listen up, folks. The new regional manager, Kyle Evans, is visiting soon. He's big on efficiency, so let's make sure everything's tight. Show him what we're made of. Jake, a burly worker, piped up. Heard he's a real hard ass. That true. John sidestepped with a half smile. He's got high standards. Like us. Let's focus on our work and prove we're the best. The crew nodded, their faith in John unshaken. As they dispersed, David gave him a reassuring nod. Back in his trailer, John pored over plans, prepping for Kyle's visit. He'd built his career on integrity and effort, and no one, not even Kyle Evans, would take that from him. He made calls, checked schedules, and aligned every detail, determined to show that his methods weren't just effective, they were unmatched. Days later, the morning sun blazed over the site as John walked the grounds, clipboard in hand, ensuring every beam and bolt was perfect. The rhythm of the site drills, shouts, the clang of metal was his heartbeat. Then David's urgent voice broke through. John Kyle's here, showed up out of nowhere. He's by the storage containers, talking to the crew. John's jaw tightened. All right, let's go. They found Kyle, arms crossed, berating two workers unloading steel pipes from a truck. The men, sweating and straining, looked confused as Kyle's voice boomed. This is inefficient. You're wasting time. Use the lift, not your hands. It's twice as fast. John stepped forward, his tone calm but firm. Morning, Mr. Evans. Didn't know you were coming today. Something I can help with. Kyle turned, his eyes cold. I'm seeing how you operate. Harris, there's too much waste here. Those pipes should be moved with equipment, not manpower. John glanced at the workers, then back at Kyle. The lift's tied up on another task right now. These guys are following protocol, keeping things moving safely. Kyle's lip curled slightly. Safely, this is about speed and cost. Your priorities are off. He gestured dismissively. We'll talk later. I've seen enough for now. As Kyle walked off, John felt a sting of anger but kept his composure. The workers looked to him, uncertain. You did fine, he told them. Keep it up. But inside, he knew Kyle's visit was just the beginning. Weeks later, the blow came. Kyle called John into a sterile corporate office. Without preamble, he slid a termination letter across the desk. Your methods don't align with our new direction, Kyle said, his voice flat. You're out, effective immediately. John's heart pounded, but he held Kyle's gaze. I've run that site better than anyone. We're on time, under budget, with zero safety violations. What's the real reason? Kyle's expression didn't waver. My decision is final. Clear out your desk. The truth hit John like a freight train. This wasn't about efficiency. Kyle's disdain, his pointed scrutiny, it reeked of something uglier. John was a black man who'd risen high, and Kyle, with his polished prejudice, couldn't stand it. But John walked out with his head high, refusing to let Kyle see him break. Months passed, and John rebuilt. He started his own construction firm, small but fierce, earning contracts through his reputation for excellence. His crew, many of whom left Kyle's site to join him, worked with a fire fueled by loyalty. John's company grew, winning bids on major projects, including a high-profile development Kyle's firm was vying for. One crisp morning, at a city planning meeting, John faced Kyle again. Kyle, now under pressure for cost overruns and delays, sat across the table, his face a mask of forced confidence. John presented his firm's proposal innovative, efficient, and community-focused. The room leaned in, captivated by his vision. When the contract was awarded to John's company, Kyle's facade cracked, his eyes burning with resentment. As the meeting ended, John approached Kyle, his voice low but steady. You thought you could bury me, but I built something better without tearing anyone down. That's the difference between us. Kyle said nothing, his silence louder than any retort. John walked away, the weight of his victory not in the contract, but in proving that integrity and resilience could outshine even the darkest prejudice. Back at his site, surrounded by his team, John felt a quiet triumph. He hadn't just gotten revenge, he'd built a legacy, one beam at a time. Under the faint glow of dawn, the construction site hummed with the quiet anticipation of a new day. John Harris, a seasoned site manager, arrived early, his boots crunching against the gravel as he surveyed the equipment and exchanged nods with the first crew members trickling in. The air was crisp, carrying the promise of a long day's work. John's routine was methodical checking machinery, noting tasks, ensuring everything was in place. But halfway through his rounds, his phone buzzed with an email from corporate, marked urgent. His stomach tightened as he opened it. The message was curt: a meeting with Kyle Evans, the new regional manager, at 9:00 a.m. No details, no warning. John exhaled sharply, the weight of the summons settling over him. Kyle's last visit to the site had been a whirlwind of criticism, his sharp eyes picking apart everything from tool storage to safety protocols. John had felt the tension then, and now it was back, sharper than before. He called over David, his trusted site supervisor, who jogged across the lot. Kyle's called a meeting. 900 €. Can you keep things running here? John asked, keeping his voice steady. David's face darkened. What's he want now? Didn't he get his fill last time? Don't know yet, John replied, forcing a calm he didn't feel. I'll handle it. Just keep the crew focused. You got it, David said, clapping John's shoulder. If you need me, I'm there. The drive to the corporate office felt endless. The city's morning bustle, a blur outside John's truck. His mind churned through every detail of the past few months. He'd tightened operations, met every deadline, and even implemented Kyle's nitpicky suggestions. Though some felt like busy work, the site was a model of efficiency, zero safety incidents, budgets balanced, yet a gnawing unease told him this meeting wasn't about praise. At the sleek high-rise, John rode the elevator to the top floor, where Kyle's office overlooked the sprawling city. The receptionist gave him a curt nod, and he sat, checking his watch 5 minutes to 9 Haru. Moments later, he was ushered in. Kyle sat behind a polished desk, flipping through a folder, not bothering to look up. "Morning, is Mr. Evans?" John said, his tone professional but guarded. Kyle's eyes flicked up, his face a mask of neutrality. "Sit down, John." He closed the folder with a deliberate snap and leaned back. "I'll cut to the chase. I've reviewed your performance reports and site inspections, and I'm not impressed." John blinked, caught off guard. "Not impressed, sir. We've hit every deadline. The site's running smoothly. No safety issues. What exactly are you looking for?" Kyle's expression hardened, his voice clipped. "I'm looking for a manager who doesn't question my methods. Someone who takes direction without pushback. You've been here a long time, John. Maybe too long. Maybe you think your way is the only way." Anger flared in John's chest, but he kept his voice level. "With respect, Mr. Evans, my way works. My team's productive, safe, and efficient. I've made your changes, but I won't compromise on safety or quality. That's where I draw the line." Kyle's eyes narrowed to slits. "That's the problem. You don't get to draw lines. I do. I need someone who aligns with the company's goals. Someone I can trust to follow my lead without question. Right now, I don't think that's you." The room fell silent, the air thick with tension. John's mind raced. He'd never missed a deadline, never gone over budget. His team was the best in the region. This wasn't about performance, it felt personal. Kyle reached into a drawer, pulled out an envelope, and slid it across the desk. "Effective immediately. You're relieved of your duties. You'll receive a severance package per company policy." John stared at the envelope, his name typed neatly on the front. "You're firing me." His voice was low, barely containing the storm brewing inside. Kyle shrugged, unfazed. "I prefer restructuring. We need managers on the same page." "This isn't restructuring," John said, his fists clenching. "This is personal. You've been gunning for me since you got here." "Call it what you want," Kyle replied, standing. "My decision's final. Security will escort you out. You have until end of day to clear your things from the site." John rose, his jaw tight, his mind numb. "You're making a mistake. This will hurt the project, and you know it." "We'll manage," Kyle said, his tone cold. "Good luck, John." As John walked out, the receptionist avoided his eyes. 2 security guards materialized, flanking him as they rode the elevator down. The doors closed, and a wave of frustration crashed over him. Years of sweat, early mornings, and late nights gone in a single conversation. For what a power trip. Back at the site, John's truck sat where he'd left it, a familiar anchor in a world turned upside down. David spotted him and hurried over. Reading the devastation on his face, "What happened?" "He fired me," John said, the words tasting bitter. "Called it restructuring, but it's an excuse." David's eyes widened. "Fired you? That's insane. What are you going to do?" John took a deep breath, steadying himself. "I don't know yet, but I'm not letting this break me. I'll figure it out." Inside his trailer, John packed his belongings, photos, notebooks, a coffee mug his daughter had painted. The site felt foreign now, the hum of machinery and chatter of workers distant. Crew members glanced his way, their faces a mix of shock and sympathy, but John kept moving, his head high despite the ache in his chest. David followed him in, his voice low. "John, if you need anything, we're here. The guys respect you. They know how hard you've worked." "Thanks, David," John said, shoving the last of his things into a box. "Just keep the site running smooth. Make sure everyone stays safe." David's fists clenched. "This ain't right. You've done nothing but good for this company." John nodded, too drained to argue. "I know, but we keep going." That evening, alone in the trailer, John sat with his thoughts. The plans on his desk, blueprints he'd pored over for months, blurred as he replayed the day. Kyle Evans was a problem, no question. But John had a team relying on him, a family waiting at home. He picked up his phone and dialed Denise. She answered on the second ring, her voice warm. "Hey, John, how was your day?" "Long," he said, rubbing his eyes. "New regional manager paid a visit. He's something else." "You okay?" she asked, concern creeping in. John smiled, feeling the tension ease. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just a lot on my mind. But I'll handle it. Always do." "I know you will," Denise said. "We're here for you, no matter what." "I know," John replied. "Save me a plate." "Always," she said, and he could hear the smile in her voice. Hanging up, John felt a quiet resolve settle in. Kyle's ambush had shaken him, but he wasn't done. He'd built too much to let one man tear it down. Standing, he turned off the trailer's lights and stepped into the cool night, ready to face whatever came next. The next morning, John woke early, the sting of Kyle's words still fresh. He drove to the site, not as a manager but to collect the last of his things. The crew greeted him with quiet respect, their loyalty unspoken but clear. David met him at the gate, his face grim. Heard from Rachel in HR. David said, "Kyle's got a reputation. Pushes hard, then pins the blame on managers when things go south." John nodded, unsurprised. "Rachel warned me last week, said he looks for scapegoats. Guess I'm it." "You don't deserve this," David said, his voice tight. "None of us do." "I'll be all right," John said, though the path ahead was unclear. "Just keep the team strong." As he loaded his truck, John thought of his crew, his family, the years he'd given. Kyle might have taken his title, but he couldn't take his grit. Somewhere out there was another site, another chance. John climbed into his truck, the engine roaring to life. The road stretched wide before him, and for the first time in days, he felt a spark of hope. He'd find his way because that's what he did. Always. John paused mid-stride, his hands stilling on the cardboard box he'd been packing. He turned to David, his coworker and friend, who stood in the doorway of the trailer office, concern etched across his face. "There's got to be something we can do," David said, his voice heavy with frustration. John managed a faint smile, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. "I'll be fine, David. I just need a little time to sort things out. You keep doing your thing, and I'll do mine." David hesitated, then gave a reluctant nod. "All right, but you call me if you need anything, okay, anytime." "I will," John promised, his tone soft but sincere. "Thanks, man." With his box of belongings tucked under one arm, John stepped out of the trailer and into the fading daylight. The construction site, once a place of purpose and pride, now felt like a chapter closing behind him. Yet, as he walked away, a strange calm settled over him. The future was a blank page, daunting but not empty. He wasn't sure what lay ahead, but one thing was certain: he wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. For his family, for himself, he'd find a way to rise again. He had no other choice. The next morning, John sat at his kitchen table, his hands wrapped around a mug of coffee that had long since gone cold. Sunlight streamed through the window, casting soft rays across the room, but John barely noticed. His mind was elsewhere, replaying the shock of the previous day being fired, the words still sharp in his memory. The construction site, with its familiar rumble of trucks and hum of machinery, was no longer his world. Instead, the house was quiet, save for the steady tick of the wall clock, a reminder of time moving forward while he felt stuck. Denise, his wife, stepped into the kitchen, her face lined with worry. She'd stayed up with him late into the night, listening as he poured out the details of his dismissal. Her support had been unwavering, a steady anchor in the storm. Now she placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Have you eaten anything?" she asked, her voice soft but firm. John shook his head, staring into his coffee. "Not hungry," he mumbled. Denise pulled out a chair and sat across from him, her eyes searching his. You can't keep doing this, John. You need to eat, to stay strong for us, for Mikey. At the mention of their son, John looked up, meeting her gaze. Her eyes held concern, but also a fierce strength that had always grounded him. She was right. He couldn't let this break him. I know, he said quietly. I don't even know where to start. Denise reached across the table, taking his hand in hers. We'll figure it out together. You've always found a way, John. This is no different. You've got years of experience, skills that speak for themselves. Someone will see that. John sighed, his grip tightening on her hand. Kyle made sure I wouldn't get a reference from the company. Without that, it's going to be an uphill battle. Denise's expression hardened, but her voice remained steady. You built that site from the ground up. Anyone who's seen your work knows what you're capable of. Even if it takes time, we'll make it work. We always have. Her words sparked a flicker of comfort in John's chest, though the weight of uncertainty still pressed down. He stood, pushing his chair back with the scrape. I should start looking, he said, determination creeping into his voice. The longer I wait, the harder it'll be. Denise smiled, a small but genuine curve of her lips. That's the John I know. But first, let me make you some breakfast. Okay, you'll think better with some food in you. He nodded, a faint smile tugging at his mouth. All right, thanks, Denise. After a plate of eggs and toast, John settled at his desk, opened his laptop, and dove into the job hunt. He scoured job boards, updated his resume, and reached out to old contacts. Each call followed the same script: sympathy for his situation, vague promises to keep an ear out, but no solid leads. Hours bled into one another, and with every polite rejection, his frustration grew. By late afternoon, John was drained, leaning back in his chair and rubbing his eyes, feeling like he was slamming into a brick wall at every turn. His phone buzzed, snapping him out of his thoughts. Glancing at the screen, he saw David's name. Hey, John, David said when he answered, his voice warm but cautious. How you holding up? I've been better, John admitted, exhaling heavily. Spent all day looking for work, but it's rough out there. Didn't realize how much a reference from the company would matter. Yeah, I figured that might be an issue, David said. But listen, I've been talking to some of the guys at the site. Everyone's pissed about what happened. You've got a lot of support out here, man. We're all rooting for you. John felt a warmth spread through him, a small balm for the day's disappointments. I appreciate that, David. Really? There was a brief pause before David spoke again. Look, I don't know if it'll pan out, but I heard Summit Builders is hiring project managers. They're one of the biggest competitors around. Might be worth a shot. Summit Builders, John repeated, the name sparking a glimmer of recognition. They had a solid reputation with high-profile projects and a culture that valued quality. You got any contacts over there? I can ask around, David offered. See if I can find someone to put in a good word. It's a long shot, but it's something. It's more than I've got right now, John said, a spark of hope igniting. Thanks, David. I owe you one. Just doing what I can, David replied. Hang in there, all right? Something's going to break through. After hanging up, John felt a shift in his mindset. Summit Builders could be his chance to start fresh, free from the shadow of his old boss, Kyle. He opened his laptop, drafted a polished email, attached his resume, and sent it to Summit's general inquiries address, highlighting his experience and eagerness to explore any opportunities. The days that followed stretched long and heavy. John fell into a routine morning spent scouring job listings, afternoons helping Denise around the house or taking Mikey to the park. He tried to stay busy, to keep his mind from circling back to his dismissal, but the sting lingered, a constant undercurrent. Still, he pressed on, fueled by Denise's encouragement and his own stubborn resolve. Then, one morning, his phone rang, an unfamiliar number flashing on the screen. His pulse quickened as he answered. Hello, this is John Harris. Hi, Mr. Harris. This is Greg Wallace from Summit Builders, came a calm, professional voice. I got your email and wanted to see if you were available for an interview. Your experience caught my eye, and we're looking to fill a project manager position. John sat up straight, his heart racing. Yes, absolutely. I'm available. When would be a good time? How about tomorrow morning at 10? Oh, Greg suggested. Our office is downtown. I'll send you the address. Perfect, John said, struggling to keep his voice steady. I'll be there. Thank you. After hanging up, John felt a rush of relief, like a weight lifting from his shoulders. It wasn't a job yet, but it was a step, a real step. He found Denise in the living room, folding laundry, and couldn't hide his excitement. I've got an interview, he said, grinning. Summit Builders. Tomorrow morning. Denise's face lit up as she dropped the shirt in her hands. John, that's amazing. I knew something would come through. She wrapped her arms around him, and John hugged her back, feeling lighter than he had in days. It's just an interview, he cautioned, though his smile betrayed his optimism. But it's a start. I just need to get my foot in the door. The next morning, John stood before the bathroom mirror, adjusting his tie with care. It had been a while since he'd worn a suit, and the crisp fabric felt unfamiliar but empowering. He met his own gaze in the reflection, steadying himself. You've got this, he murmured. Just be honest. Be yourself. He arrived at Summit Builders' sleek downtown office a few minutes early, taking a moment to calm his nerves before stepping inside. The receptionist greeted him with a warm smile and directed him to a conference room where Greg Wallace waited. Greg, a man in his mid-40s with a firm handshake and a genuine smile, stood to greet him. John Harris, nice to meet you. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for having me, John replied, settling into a chair. The interview flowed smoothly. Greg asked about John's experience, his approach to managing projects, and how he navigated challenges on site. John spoke with confidence, drawing on years of leading teams, meeting deadlines, and prioritizing safety. He shared stories of complex builds he'd overseen, emphasizing his commitment to quality over shortcuts. Greg listened intently, nodding as John spoke. You've got an impressive track record, Greg said, leaning back in his chair. Can you tell me why you left your last company? John paused, choosing his words carefully. There was a change in management, Ed. The new regional manager and I had different philosophies. I was let go as part of a restructuring. Greg studied him for a moment, then nodded. I've seen that happen. It's tough, but it sounds like you'd fit in here. We prioritize safety and quality, same as you. John felt a surge of hope, his heart beating faster. That's great to hear. I've always believed in doing things right, no matter the pressure. Greg smiled. That's what we're looking for. I'll need to check your references and run through our approval process. But if everything checks out, I'd like to offer you the position. John's breath caught, but he kept his composure. Thank you, Greg. I really appreciate the opportunity. They shook hands, and John left the office feeling like he was walking on air. He called Denise from the car, his voice brimming with excitement. It's not official yet, but it went well, really well. They're checking references, but Greg said they might offer me the job. I'm so proud of you, Denise said, her voice warm with relief. You didn't give up. John, this is just the beginning. As he drove home, John felt a renewed sense of purpose. The road ahead wasn't clear, but he was moving forward, one determined step at a time. A week later, John stepped into Summit Builders' main office, a mix of nerves and excitement coursing through him. It was his first day as a project manager for one of Atlanta's top construction firms. The modern building, with its sleek design and cool air, was a far cry from the gritty construction sites he knew so well. This was a fresh start, a chance to rebuild his career on his terms. Greg met him in the lobby, his handshake firm and his smile welcoming. Good to have you aboard, John, ready to hit the ground running. Absolutely, John said, his voice steady despite the butterflies in his stomach. Looking forward to it. Let's get you settled, Greg said, leading him down a hallway lined with framed photos of past projects. We've got a lot to cover, but I think you'll find your rhythm fast. We're putting you on the Riverside development, one of our biggest projects this year. John nodded, familiar with the name. The Riverside development was a high-profile build luxury condos and retail spaces along the riverfront. A project that demanded precision and expertise. It was a challenge, but John was ready to prove himself. They entered a glass-walled conference room where a small team waited. Greg made introductions. This is John Harris, our new project manager. John, meet Tina, our lead architect, and Jason, our site supervisor. Tina, a sharp-eyed woman with a confident demeanor, shook John's hand. Nice to meet you. John, heard good things about your work. Likewise, John said, returning her smile. Excited to collaborate. Jason, a tall man with a no-nonsense air, gave John a nod. Welcome aboard. We've got a lot to tackle, but you'll fit in fine. Greg gestured for everyone to sit. Let's dive into the project plan. John, we're counting on you to bring this in on time and under budget. We've had some permit delays, but those are cleared now. Your job is to get the crew up to speed and keep things moving. John listened closely as Tina and Jason briefed him on the project's status. He took notes, asked questions, and absorbed every detail. The team had laid a strong foundation, but challenges loomed: tight deadlines, complex engineering, and the constant need to maintain safety standards. After the meeting, Greg showed John to his office, a small but functional space with a desk and a view of the city skyline. As John settled in, he felt a spark of optimism. This was his chance to start over, to build something new, not just a project, but a future for his family. The road had been rough, but he was here now, ready to take on whatever came next. One step at a time, John Nelson stepped into his new office, a modest space with a window offering a sweeping view of the city's skyline. He set his briefcase down, the soft thud echoing his resolve. A sense of purpose washed over him, grounding him in this new chapter. The room, though sparse, felt alive with possibility, a canvas for the work he was about to undertake. Greg Wallace, his new boss, appeared in the doorway, leaning casually against the frame. So, John, how's it feel to be here? He asked, his tone warm but probing. John turned, a confident smile spreading across his face. It's a lot to take in, Greg, but I'm ready. This project's massive, no question, but I've tackled big ones before. I'm excited to dive in. Greg nodded, his expression one of quiet approval. That's exactly why you're here, John. You've got the track record. Just keep doing what you do best, lead by example. Stay sharp on the details, and don't hesitate to call out anything that looks off. We trust you to run a tight ship. Appreciate the confidence. Greg, John replied, his voice steady. I won't let you down. I know you won't, Greg said, clapping him on the shoulder. My door's always open if you need me. For now, why don't you head to the Riverside site? Jason's waiting to show you around. John grabbed his hard hat, the familiar weight in his hand boosting his confidence further. As he left the office, each step felt more certain, as if the ground itself was rising to meet him. The Riverside site was a short drive away, nestled along a prime stretch of riverfront real estate. When he pulled up, the sheer scale of the operation hit him like a wave. Towering cranes pierced the sky, their arms swinging with precision. Workers moved like ants in a colony, purposeful and synchronized, their shouts mingling with the hum of machinery. The half-built structures stood proud, a testament to ambition and careful planning. Jason, the site supervisor, spotted John and strode over, his boots kicking up dust. Welcome to Riverside, he said, sweeping an arm toward the bustling scene. It's a beast of a project, but we're making it happen. Let me give you the grand tour. For the next hour, they navigated the site, Jason pointing out key areas: the foundation for the main tower, the staging zones for materials, the temporary offices buzzing with activity. John soaked it all in, firing off questions about timelines, supply chains, and the crew's dynamics. He noted the progress: sturdy concrete pillars, neatly stacked steel beams, and a layout that spoke of meticulous planning. But his sharp eye caught something off a group of workers struggling to unload heavy steel beams by hand, their movements slow and cautious. John paused, watching them for a moment. Why aren't we using the crane for that? He asked, turning to Jason. Jason shrugged, wiping sweat from his brow. Crane's tied up with another load right now. We're trying to keep the pace. John's brow furrowed. It's too slow this way, and it's risky someone could get hurt. We need to tweak the schedule so the crane handles the heavy stuff. It'll save time and keep the crew safe. Jason considered this, then nodded. You're right, I'll make it happen. They continued the tour, John mentally cataloging other small inefficiencies, minor adjustments that could yield big results. By the time they wrapped up, he felt a growing sense of ease. The site was well run, and Jason was sharp, receptive to input. This was a team John could mold, a project he could steer to success. Back in the site's temporary office, John sat with Jason and the foreman, laying out his proposed changes. He spoke with calm authority, emphasizing efficiency and safety. The foreman scribbled notes, nodding in agreement, promising to pass the plan along to the crew. John spent the rest of the day meeting workers, shaking hands, and learning the site's rhythm. He was struck by their openness, their willingness to embrace his ideas, a stark contrast to the stifling oversight he'd endured under his previous boss, Kyle. As the day wound down, John stood at the edge of the site, gazing at the river. The sun dipped low, painting the water in shades of gold and amber. He inhaled deeply, a quiet satisfaction settling in his chest. It had been a strong first day. The road ahead was long, but he was ready. For the first time in weeks, John felt truly in his element. He pulled out his phone and dialed his wife, Denise. She picked up on the first ring, her voice bright. Hey, how'd it go? John smiled, his eyes tracing the horizon. Better than I expected. The team's solid, the project's on track, and I think I can really make a difference here. I knew you'd kill it, Denise said, her pride evident. I never doubted you'd bounce back. Thanks, Denise. Couldn't have done it without you. I'll be home soon. Okay. We'll be waiting, she replied softly. John pocketed his phone and headed to his car, a lightness in his step. Driving home, the city lights flickering to life around him. He thought about what lay ahead. This job, this project, it felt like a fresh start, a chance to build something lasting. Whatever challenges came, he was ready. At Summit Builders, John quickly found his rhythm. Each morning he arrived at Riverside before dawn, greeted by the clatter of machinery and the buzz of activity. He thrived in the controlled chaos, orchestrating material deliveries, syncing with subcontractors, and ensuring every task aligned with the ambitious schedule. The Riverside development was a bold undertaking, a gleaming complex of condos and retail spaces, but John's team was skilled and driven. Within weeks, he made his mark. He reorganized the site's layout, carving out clearer paths for equipment and workers. He introduced stricter safety protocols, cutting down on minor incidents and boosting morale. The changes paid off fast, productivity soared, and the crew's camaraderie grew stronger. Workers respected John's hands-on style, his willingness to roll up his sleeves and listen to their input. One crisp morning, John stood by the scaffolding, reviewing the day's plan with Jason. Their conversation was interrupted by Greg, who dropped by unannounced. His visits were always a morale boost, a sign he cared about the work on the ground. "Morning, gentlemen," Greg said, shaking their hands. "How's Riverside shaping up?" "Ahead of schedule on the condo units," John replied, gesturing to the rising framework. "Jason's team is firing on all cylinders." Jason chimed in, "John's tweaks to the workflow have made a big difference. We're moving faster without cutting corners." Greg's face lit up. "That's what I like to hear. Upper management's been raving about the progress here. Keep it up." John felt a swell of pride. "Thanks, Greg. We're all in on making this a success." Greg's expression turned serious, though his tone remained friendly. "John, can we talk privately for a minute?" Curious, John followed him to a quieter corner of the site, away from the din of construction. Greg faced him, his eyes steady. "You've done exceptional work here. John, your leadership, your ability to optimize this hasn't gone unnoticed. Summit has some major projects coming up, and we need someone to oversee them as a senior project manager. John blinked, caught off guard. Senior project manager. Greg nodded. You're the right fit. You've proven you can handle complex projects, lead teams, and hit tight deadlines. It's more responsibility, bigger teams, higher stakes, but I know you're up for it. Plus, it comes with a significant pay bump. A rush of emotions hit John: pride, excitement, and a flicker of relief. After the gut punch of losing his last job, this felt like redemption. I'm honored. Greg, I'm ready to take it on. I knew you would be, Greg said, smiling. We'll start transitioning you soon. Finish strong at Riverside, then you'll move to new projects. There's a big one on the horizon, a mixed-use development on the east side. It's our flagship for the next 2 years. John's mind raced with possibilities. I'll make it a success. Thank you for trusting me with this. They shook hands, and as Greg left, John stood for a moment, letting it sink in. Riverside was thriving, and now he had a chance to climb higher. The journey from unemployment to this moment had been grueling, but it had forged him into something stronger. He found Jason and shared the news. Jason grinned, clapping him on the back. That's huge. John, you earned it. We'll miss you around here, though. I'm not gone yet, John said, chuckling. We've got work to finish, and I'll make sure the site's in good hands when I move on. The rest of the day flew by in a blur of tasks. John moved through the site with renewed energy, checking progress, joking with the crew, and sketching out plans for the weeks ahead. He stayed late, poring over blueprints in the site office, his mind already half on the future. Driving home that night, John reflected on his path. Summit Builders had been a lifeline, a chance to prove himself after a brutal setback. This promotion was more than a career leap. It was validation of his approach: lead with respect, prioritize quality, and never shy away from hard work. He'd found a company that shared those values, and he was determined to seize this opportunity. At home, Denise waited in the kitchen, dinner warm on the table. John kissed her cheek, a grin breaking across his face. I've got news. Her eyes lit up. What is it? Promoted, he said, the word carrying weight. Senior project manager. I'll be running some of Summit's biggest projects. Denise's face split into a smile. John, that's incredible. I knew you'd do it. You've worked so hard. He took her hand, gratitude welling up. I couldn't have gotten here without you, Denise. You've been my anchor through everything. She squeezed his hand back. I've always believed in you. This is just the start. John, I know there's more to come. They sat together, talking late into the night about the future new projects, new possibilities. John felt lighter, as if a burden he'd carried for months had finally lifted. He'd faced doubt and fear, but he'd come through stronger. The city lights twinkled outside, a reminder of the world he was helping to build, piece by piece. Months later, John's promotion had settled into reality. He'd wrapped up Riverside, leaving it in capable hands, and moved on to the East Side project, a sprawling complex that would redefine the city's skyline. Each day brought new challenges, but John met them head-on, his confidence tempered by humility. He was building more than structures. He was crafting a legacy, one rooted in resilience and vision. And with Denise by his side, he knew the foundation he stood on was unshakable, ready to support whatever the future held. John Harris thrived in the bustling chaos of his role as a senior project manager at Summit Builders. His days were a whirlwind of meetings, site inspections, and orchestrating the efforts of diverse teams. The challenges energized him, giving him a sense of command and respect he'd never known at his previous job. Every project he spearheaded blossomed, cementing his reputation as a cornerstone of the company. He relished being at the heart of major developments, his voice shaping Summit's strategic vision. One crisp morning, as John prepped for another packed day, his phone vibrated with an email alert. The sender was Greg Wallace, the director of operations, and the subject line read, Urgent merger announcement. Meeting today at 10 a.m. John's brow furrowed. A merger, no whispers of this had reached him. Intrigued, he grabbed his laptop and hurried to the conference room. When he arrived, the space hummed with the presence of senior managers and executives, their faces mirroring his own surprise. Greg stood at the front, next to a projector screen displaying Summit Builders' logo alongside another shockingly familiar. It was the logo of Titan Construction, the company where John had toiled for years before being abruptly fired by Kyle Evans. "Good morning, everyone," Greg began, his voice steady as he scanned the room. "You've likely heard the rumors, and I'm here to confirm them. Summit Builders is finalizing a merger with Titan Construction." A ripple of murmurs spread through the room. John's stomach churned. Titan Construction, the name conjured memories he'd rather forget. Greg pressed on, detailing the merger's benefits: expanded market share, access to Titan's vast client network, and a combined expertise that would elevate the new entity to industry dominance. "Mergers bring uncertainty," Greg acknowledged, addressing the tension in the air. "But we're committed to a seamless transition. Our goal is to blend teams and processes while upholding our standards. That requires strong leadership." His gaze settled on John. "John, I'd like you to lead the integration of Titan's project management teams with ours. Your experience and proven success make you the perfect fit for this." Pride surged in John's chest, tinged with unease. The role was a testament to Greg's trust, but it meant diving back into the world of Titan Construction and possibly facing Kyle Evans again. "Of course, Greg," John replied, his voice calm. "I'm ready to contribute however I can." Greg nodded. "Excellent. You'll start tomorrow by meeting Titan's management team. Get a sense of their operations, identify synergies, and flag any challenges." Back in his office, John's mind raced. He tried to focus on reviewing Titan's projects and team structures, but thoughts of Kyle Evans kept intruding. Was Kyle still there? Would their paths cross? A familiar tension gripped him, but John shoved it aside. He wasn't the same man who'd been blindsided by a firing years ago. He was a leader at one of the city's top firms, his place earned through grit and skill. No one, especially not Kyle, would derail him now. The next morning, John pulled into the parking lot of Titan Construction's headquarters. The sleek glass and steel building gleamed under the sun, unchanged from his past life there. He took a deep breath, steeling himself, and strode through the lobby to the conference room. Inside, Titan's managers chatted quietly. Some faces were familiar, others new. Then his eyes landed on the one person he dreaded seeing: Kyle Evans. Kyle stood by the window, mid-conversation with another executive, his posture unmistakable. John's pulse quickened, but he squared his shoulders and stepped forward. "Good morning, everyone," John announced, his voice carrying authority. "I'm John Harris from Summit Builders, and I'll be overseeing the integration process as we move forward with the merger." Kyle turned at the sound of John's voice, his face flickering from surprise to a guarded expression. For a moment, the room seemed to hold its breath. Then Kyle's lips curved into a thin, forced smile. "John," he said, "didn't expect to see you here." "Likewise," John replied, holding Kyle's gaze. "It's been a while." Kyle shrugged, his smile cold. "It has senior project manager at Summit. Huh? Not bad." John nodded, unfazed. "Not bad at all. Shall we get started?" The meeting was a tightrope walk of professionalism. John steered the discussion, focusing on logistics, team alignment, and project management practices. He kept his tone even, asking pointed questions and jotting notes. Kyle chimed in occasionally, his comments laced with restraint. As the meeting unfolded, John sensed a shift. Kyle seemed less assured, as if the old power dynamics no longer held. Afterward, John lingered to talk with other Titan managers, gathering insights into their projects. He was about to leave when Kyle approached. "John," Kyle said quietly, glancing around to ensure privacy. "Can we talk?" John turned, his expression neutral. "What's on your mind?" Kyle hesitated. "I know things ended badly between us, but that's history. This merger's a chance to start fresh. We could work together, make this transition a success." John studied Kyle, searching for sincerity but finding only calculation. A fresh start, John echoed. Like the one you gave me when you fired me without cause? Or is this about protecting yourself now that a merger's shaking things up? Kyle's eyes narrowed. You think you're calling the shots now? Don't you fancy title? Greg Wallace's ear. I know how this works. John, alliances shift. Today's friend could be tomorrow's rival. John's voice remained steady. This isn't a game, Kyle. It's about doing right by the company and its people. I'm not here for grudges, but I won't let anyone sabotage Summit's work, not even you. Kyle's face hardened. We'll see about that. John turned away, ending the exchange. As he left the building, a quiet resolve settled over him. He'd worked too hard to let Kyle's petty tactics drag him down. The merger was a challenge, but also a chance to prove that true leadership stemmed from integrity and fairness, not control. Back at Summit, John met with Greg to share his findings. He outlined Titan's operational strengths and weaknesses, pinpointing areas for improvement and potential hurdles. Greg listened intently, nodding. Solid work. John, you've got this under control. We'll incorporate your recommendations as we move forward. Thanks, Greg. John said, I'll keep you posted. Leaving Greg's office, John felt a surge of accomplishment. He'd faced his past, held his ground, and was shaping Summit's future. The path ahead would be tough, but he was ready to lead with confidence. As the merger progressed, John threw himself into the integration effort. His days brimmed with strategy sessions, site visits, and meetings to align the two companies' operations. It was grueling, but John was committed to making it work. Most of Titan's managers were cooperative, but Kyle remained a persistent thorn. His professionalism, a thin veneer over subtle hostility. He questioned John's decisions in meetings, his passive-aggressive jabs testing John's patience. John chose to rise above, keeping his focus on the merger's goals. One afternoon, as John reviewed project files in his office, his phone buzzed. The caller was Rachel Parker, an HR specialist from his Titan days who'd supported him through tough times. Rachel, great to hear from you, John said, answering warmly. John, I'm glad I caught you, Rachel replied, her tone urgent. I've been digging, and there's something you need to know. John leaned forward. What's going on? Rachel paused, then continued. It's about Kyle. There have been complaints against him for years, allegations of discrimination, unethical behavior, intimidation, serious issues. Most were ignored or buried. Kyle had too much sway with Titan's leadership, and people were scared to push back. John's jaw tightened. He'd known Kyle's style was ruthless, but this was worse than he'd imagined. Why didn't anything happen, he asked. Rachel sighed. Fear of retaliation. People worried about their jobs. But the merger changes things. Those complaints are still in HR's records. If we bring them to light, it could hold Kyle accountable. Determination flared in John. This wasn't just about protecting his team, it was about justice for those Kyle had wronged. Rachel, can you get me those records? I need hard evidence to take to Greg and Summit's executives. I'm already on it, Rachel said. It'll take time, but I'll pull everything I can. John, you're in a position to make a difference. You've got Summit's trust. Leave it to me, John said firmly. Keep gathering the info, and let me know if you need support. We'll make sure Kyle faces the consequences. Over the next few days, Rachel sent John a steady stream of documents, employee complaints, internal emails, and reports detailing Kyle's misconduct. As John reviewed them, his resolve grew. This was his chance to not only safeguard the merger, but also to prove that leadership meant standing up for what was right, no matter the personal cost. The merger wasn't just a business deal, it was a testament to resilience, integrity, and the power of doing the right thing. John was ready to see it through, no matter the challenges ahead. John Harris sat at his desk, sifting through a stack of memos and reports that had been deliberately swept under the rug. As he pieced together the evidence, a chilling pattern began to take shape. Kyle Evans, a man with a commanding presence and unchecked power, had been using his authority to intimidate and coerce employees. Those who dared to question his decisions or challenge his iron grip faced relentless bullying. Whispers of racial discrimination, mistreatment of subcontractors, and vengeful retaliation against whistleblowers painted a grim picture. John's blood boiled, but a steely resolve settled in his chest. This wasn't just about the personal slights he'd endured from Kyle years ago. It was about giving a voice to every employee who had been silenced by fear. He knew the path ahead demanded caution. The evidence had to be presented in a way that would jolt the executives into action, leaving no room for excuses. Justice wasn't just a goal, it was a necessity. One crisp morning, John strode into Greg Wallace's office, a thick folder tucked under his arm, courtesy of Rachel, a colleague who had risked much to compile the damning documents. Greg, engrossed in paperwork, looked up, his eyes catching the gravity on John's face. "John, what's this about?" he asked, leaning back in his chair. John set the folder on Greg's desk with a quiet thud. "Greg, I've uncovered something you need to see. It's about Kyle Evans." Greg's brow furrowed as he opened the folder, his fingers flipping through page after page of complaints, emails, and reports. The room grew heavy with silence, broken only by the rustle of paper. Greg's face darkened with every line he read. After what felt like an eternity, he looked up. "This is bad. John, how did this stay buried for so long?" "Kyle's influence," John replied, his voice steady. He scared people into silence. "But with the merger, we can't ignore this. We owe it to our employees to create a workplace where they feel safe, where fairness isn't just a buzzword. Kyle's actions are a threat to everything we're trying to build." Greg nodded, his expression troubled. "You're right. This can't stand. I'll need to take this to the board and our legal team. This could shake up the merger." John leaned forward, his voice firm but calm. "I get that the merger's complicated, Greg, but we can't let that stop us. If we turn a blind eye, we're complicit. Kyle has to face consequences." Greg met his gaze, a flicker of respect in his eyes. "I hear you. I'll bring this to the board. For now, keep this quiet. We can't let Kyle catch wind of this before we're ready." John exhaled, a wave of relief washing over him. It was a small victory, but it was a start. He left Greg's office with a fire in his heart, determined to see this through. Later that day, as John walked the Riverside construction site, the weight of his decision settled over him. Standing up to Kyle wasn't just about protecting his own career. It was about ensuring no one else would suffer the way he and countless others had. Kyle wouldn't go quietly, John knew that, but he was ready for the fight. He'd faced challenges before, and this one, though daunting, wouldn't break him. That evening, he called Rachel to update her. "I met with Greg," he said. "He's taking the evidence to the board. It's going to take time, but we're moving forward." Rachel's voice crackled with relief. "That's huge, John. I've been talking to some of the people who filed complaints. They're scared, but they're ready to speak out if it comes to that. You're giving them hope." John smiled, warmed by her words. "We're in this together. Rachel, this isn't just about stopping Kyle. It's about setting a precedent, showing that intimidation and discrimination have no place here." "Absolutely," she agreed. "Keep me posted, and I'll keep digging." "We're not backing down." As John hung up, a sense of purpose surged through him. The merger had dredged up old wounds, but it had also given him a chance to make a real difference. He wasn't just a project manager anymore, he was a leader, fighting for fairness and integrity. The battle against Kyle was just beginning, but John was armed with evidence, allies, and an unshakable commitment to doing what was right. Days later, the conference room buzzed with tension. John sat at the head of a long table, a thick file of documents before him. Greg was at his side, flipping through his own notes. Across from them, the board members of Summit Builders sat with stern expressions, the air thick with anticipation. This was the moment John had been preparing for, the day the board would confront the truth about Kyle Evans. Every detail had been meticulously documented, every complaint carefully cataloged. Bringing these allegations to light wasn't just about Kyle, it was about defining the kind of company Summit Builders would be. Greg cleared his throat, his voice cutting through the silence. Thank you all for being here. We're here to address serious allegations of misconduct against Kyle Evans, former regional manager of Titan Construction, now part of Summit Builders. John Harris has led the investigation into these claims. John, the floor is yours. John stood, his heart steady as he met the eyes of each board member. Thank you, Greg. Over the past few weeks, we've uncovered evidence of a disturbing pattern of unethical behavior by Kyle Evans. This includes documented complaints of discrimination, intimidation, and retaliation against employees who raise concerns about safety and fairness. He opened the file, projecting documents onto a screen for the board to see written complaints, internal emails, and memos that had been buried for years. John laid out the case methodically, describing how Kyle had targeted minority employees, made biased decisions in hiring and promotions, and fostered a toxic environment through threats and coercion. As he spoke, he watched the board members' faces shift from curiosity to concern, their glances confirming the gravity of the evidence. This isn't a series of isolated incidents, John continued. It's a clear pattern of abuse. Employees at Titan felt voiceless, afraid to speak out for fear of losing their jobs. But with this merger, we have a chance to change that, to show that we value integrity above all else. Greg nodded, his voice firm. I've reviewed the evidence with John, and it's undeniable. Kyle's actions are unacceptable. If we want Summit Builders to lead the industry, we must hold our leaders accountable. A board member, a woman with sharp eyes and gray hair, leaned forward. John, this is compelling. But what's your plan? How do we move forward? John was ready. First, I recommend terminating Kyle Evans' employment immediately based on this evidence. Second, we should conduct a full review of all complaints filed under his management to address any unresolved issues. Finally, we need to implement mandatory training programs to ensure this never happens again. Another board member, his voice measured, spoke up. These are bold steps, but they're warranted. We can't risk our reputation by letting this slide. Greg scanned the table. Any objections to John's recommendations? The room was silent, heads nodding in agreement. Greg turned to John. Thank you for your diligence and your commitment to our values. We'll proceed with your recommendations. Kyle's employment will be terminated effective immediately, and we'll launch a review of all outstanding complaints. Relief flooded John as the meeting adjourned. Justice wasn't just a possibility anymore. It was happening. As the board members left, Greg lingered, placing a hand on John's shoulder. You did the right thing, John. This took guts, and it's going to change things not just for us, but for everyone who trusts us to lead fairly. John nodded, gratitude swelling in his chest. Thank you, Greg. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. People deserve better. Greg smiled. And because of you, they'll get it. Now let's make sure we follow through. As John walked out of the conference room, a weight lifted from his shoulders. He had faced his past, confronted his fears, and taken a stand. The merger had been a crucible, but it had forged him into the leader he was meant to be. Back in his office, his mind turned to the work ahead, rebuilding trust, ensuring a smooth transition, and fostering a workplace where everyone felt valued. Later that day, Rachel called, her voice brimming with emotion. I heard they fired Kyle. John, you did it. You stood up for all of us. We did it, John corrected, his voice warm. You were a huge part of this. Rachel, thank you for believing we could make a difference. This is just the beginning, she said, her tone resolute. You're changing things for the better. As John hung up, he gazed out his office window, the city sprawling before him, a testament to the challenges he'd overcome and the work still to come. He thought of the journey that had brought him here, the struggles and triumphs that had shaped him. More challenges lay ahead, but John was ready, grounded in purpose and bolstered by those who believed in him. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the city. John felt a quiet peace settle over him. He had built more than buildings in his career. He had built a legacy of integrity, brick by brick, day by day, and he would keep building for a future that was strong, just, and fair for all.